You got de-globalization and de-dollarization. So those two
Yes.
themes we identified 2 years ago, and then we said this year would be the big year for de-dollarization and de-globalization. And so that's what we're talking about. So both of those things were, had a lifespan that would eventually come to an end. The U.S. dollar is a world reserve currency since the end of World War II, so-called 70, 75 years. You had the U.S. dollar as world reserve currency. Since 1971, it became a Ponzi scheme. And the theme of extend and pretend became the dominant force in the global economy, where all problems were solved by printing more money and extending the maturity of all the bonds and lowering the coupon. And in this way, you had malinvestment, you had the rise of the kleptocrats in America and around the world. You had the financialization boom, and you had the deindustrialization that went on in the United States that could only be made possible if you had concurrently a financialization and a transfer of wealth from the bottom to the top. So anyway, the bond market, which is the Ponzi market base layer, after many, many years talking about when will the bond market finally roll over and we enter a secular bear market for bonds, I think I'm 99% sure now that that's what's just happened. We're entering a secular bear market for bonds. That means that interest rates will be going up for the next 5, 10, or 15 years. It's a secular move in interest rates higher. So that's the de-dollarization. De-globalization was held together by financialization. So when you pull the pins of financialization out of the monster that was the global empire of debt, you have now countries are breaking apart, and this is causing a lot of agita. There was a school of thought that suggested that the U.S. dollar would continue as world reserve currency and that the Bitcoin would be the world reserve asset. And I never bought into that theory. I questioned it. I just didn't see that happening. It seems to me that Bitcoin was going to eat all the fiat money world in the world, and it was going to eat gold, and it was going to eat all assets. And so when you have the rise of Bitcoin and you have the fall of fiat, that fall of fiat is going to be everything attached to fiat. The Petro-Dollar is certainly attached to fiat. The military-industrial complex is attached to fiat. The global bond market is attached to fiat. So when these things crack and they fall apart, it's going to be kinetic, very kinetic. And people are going to be like, bang, 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 shooting at each other because, this is revert to human nature, which is one of the biggest cycles of all. Human nature is something that you can't really escape from. So this is the fall of fiat money. That's what we're seeing. I mean, El Salvador was the spark, the Bitcoin spark, and it's starting a revolution, and it's spreading to Latin America. We see it in Africa. There's a revolution going on. There's a huge power shift, right? So the U.S. and Great Britain and maybe some European powers and others are going to lose power. I mean, and some other powers are going to rise up. But it's that's just the cycle. That's one of the cycles. Certainly, there's a revolution going on there. But I mean, this is we're in a new reality, folks. It's a new reality. It's time to make the adjustments to this new reality. That's just the way it is, right?
Let's look at my positive side, optimistic, relentlessly optimistic interpretation of this, Max.
Okay.
And that is that Bitcoin is peace, okay?
Right.
And the language of Bitcoin is Spanish. That's my interpretation. When I look at it, I think, you know what? Bitcoin is peace, and peace is coming. This is going to be
Bitcoin
a short...
demonetizes war and hatred.
Yes.
For sure. But
yes.
It's not going to happen, obviously, this week or next month. It's going to still have a few battles to fight and win.
Yeah. Well, the old saying used to be, if there's no two nations with a McDonald's will go to war.
Yeah.
But in fact, it's no two people with Bitcoin will go to war, right?
Right.
Because they have a low time preference. They believe in the future, and we're all a family.
It's unconfiscatable.
And it's unconfiscatable.
It's the upside to beating somebody up for their Bitcoin is very low because it's unconfiscatable. So you have to come at them with something else to get their Bitcoin, something value for value. You will help them fix their roof and they'll get some Bitcoin. You can't just hit them on the head with a hammer and steal their Bitcoin. So that process is going to take some time. Those who fight it will be stuck in the fiat world and they're never going to make it. Those who are taking Bitcoin on as legal tender, as the global standard, There'll be Noah's Ark, sailing into the new paradigm, but that's where we're at right now. So you've got Bitcoin has essentially thrown the gauntlet down and said, either you're with Bitcoin or you're against Bitcoin. If you're against Bitcoin, prepare to reap the whirlwind of your stupidity. If you're with Bitcoin, prepare for relentless optimism.
But also, like, for me, and I think most people feel like this, is like when you meet a Bitcoiner, you feel like that is your first connection, right? Like, I feel more connected to somebody because they're a Bitcoiner than if they're American or a woman or from Connecticut or like wherever, any other thing that has been part of my life. Like, I feel most connected to a Bitcoiner. So I feel more connected to a Bitcoiner in El Salvador.
And so with Bitcoin, the values are consistent throughout the entire tribe or the entire community of unconfiscatable, uncensorable, immutable wealth. I mean, those three kind of phrases are like the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost in Christianity. There are three things that everyone in Christianity accepts if they're a Christian. Okay. There are three things that everyone in Bitcoin community accepts: unconfiscatability, immutability, uncensorability. That's three things we accept as being true, and therefore that offers a communion when you meet other people. So that's absolutely true. And it's because it's perfect money and you have perfect price discovery, it means it's going to win. So we have confidence. Well, it would be lovely to have some Bitcoin ETFs, physical Bitcoin ETFs. It's remarkable that they introduced the futures-based ETF product, which is a known scam, which is immediately got crushed and killed a lot of retail investors. That was done knowingly by the SEC to dissuade people from buying Bitcoin. The retail-friendly product is the physical cash-only Bitcoin product. So, I mean, the story about ETFs and Bitcoin is not a story about whether or not you will see a Bitcoin ETF. It's a story about corruption at the SEC. Gary Gensler. And Jon Stewart did an excellent interview with Gary Gensler. You can look it up somewhere, where he just pins him down and says, you guys are crooks. And he said, well, we do civil lawsuits and a lot of fines are paid. And Jon Stewart said, yeah, and less than half of those fines are actually paid. So it's a story of corruption, and that leads ultimately to war, and that's where we're at now, folks.